She never smiled for the cameras. She never chased fame, and she never tried to be beautiful in the way the world expected. Yet somehow, Jamie Bochert became one of the most unforgettable faces on the runway. With a stare that could stop time and a silhouette that looked like it stepped out of a Lou Reed lyric, Jamie wasn't just a model. She was a mystery. In an industry obsessed with polish, she showed up unfiltered, messy, raw, real. Marc Jacobs called her a muse. Hedi Slimane photographed her like she was a ghost he didn't want to let go. And underground musicians saw her not as a model, but as a rock star who just happened to walk for Chanel. But behind that androgynous frame and smoky gaze was a woman constantly torn between the noise of fashion and the silence she craved. Who is Jamie Bochert, really? And why did she disappear? Right when the world was ready to worship her. Jamie Bochert wasn't born into fashion. She was born into noise. Raised in the quiet suburbs of New Jersey, Jamie spent her youth in the margins, always observing, rarely performing. While other girls were learning how to contour or follow pop trends, Jamie was immersed in the Velvet Underground, Patti Smith, and 70s punk rock. Her idols didn't wear crowns, they wore eyeliner, combat boots, and defiance. As a teenager, she was awkward, tall, and intimidatingly thin. She didn't fit in, and she didn't want to. Music was her first love. She played guitar obsessively, wrote lyrics in the corners of notebooks, dreamed of underground clubs, not catwalks. Her fashion awakening came by accident. In the early 2000s, she was bartending in Los Angeles, living hand-to-mouth and trying to start a band, when a photographer spotted her. Her angular face, hollow cheeks, and dark stare didn't scream cover girl. They whispered something else. Soon, modeling agencies came calling. They weren't looking for the next Giselle. They were looking for the opposite. And Jamie? She didn't chase the dream. She stood still, and the dream came to her. There was a moment in fashion, raw, electric, unpolished, when the industry stopped looking for perfect and started craving real. And Jamie Bochert walked in at exactly that moment. She wasn't the girl next door. She wasn't a goddess. She was a shadow you couldn't forget. In 2002, fresh out of Los Angeles and still more musician than model, Jamie made her Fashion Week debut. But she didn't walk the runway like others did. She drifted through it, like a vision half real, half underground myth. When Demeulemeester cast her, it was like lightning. Marc Jacobs said Jamie didn't just wear clothes, she made them feel alive. Hedi Slimane treated her like a living relic of a rock era that never truly ended. Suddenly, she was everywhere. Givenchy, Chanel, Rick Owens, each show became an extension of her own world, bleak, romantic, subversively cool. But Jamie wasn't just a look. She was a language. She brought the attitude of Patti Smith, the quiet danger of Lou Reed, and the unbothered disinterest of 90s New York straight into a new millennium. Off the runway, editors fought to book her. Her editorial presence was spellbinding, vacant stares, angular poses, a haunted beauty that refused to please you. In a single spread, she could look like a French poet, a Berlin junkie, or a ghost from a Warhol film reel. What made her rise even more fascinating was her resistance to it. While others networked, Jamie retreated. She lived in a cluttered Brooklyn loft filled with guitars, vintage amps, and dying plants. Between fittings, she was recording demos, scribbling lyrics, or cooking pasta with friends. Models, artists, punks, misfits. She told one interviewer, "I was never looking for fashion. It just kept finding me." That was the paradox. She didn't need the industry needed her. There's no dramatic fall in Jamie Bochert's story. No scandal, no overdose, no final walk of shame. Just a quiet fading, like smoke dissipating before you realize it was ever there. By the mid-2010s, Jamie was still the face of underground fashion, still walking for select designers, still gracing obscure editorials, but something had shifted. She wasn't present, not fully, not anymore. And the truth is, she never wanted to be. Jamie once described herself as a visitor in fashion, not a participant, not a product. She loved the people, the artistry, the music, but she hated the machinery, the interviews, the scheduling, the constant expectation to exist for other people's vision. Fame didn't seduce her, it exhausted her. More and more, she turned down runway shows, ignored brand contracts, stopped answering calls unless they were from Marc or Hedi, people who understood her language of stillness and space. Instead, she poured herself into music, not to be heard by millions, just to be heard by herself. In 2014, she released a few lo-fi demos under the name Frances Wolf. No marketing, no Spotify push, just songs, fragile, minimal, aching. She would spend nights recording alone, often redoing a single vocal line for hours, chasing a feeling no one else could hear. She wasn't chasing a comeback, she was reclaiming a piece of herself. At fashion events, when she did appear, she'd stand in the corner, cigarette in hand, eyes wandering. People whispered, "That's Jamie Bochert." But she was already gone. Not physically, spiritually. The industry kept calling. She kept stepping further back. She didn't vanish. She just refused to perform for anyone anymore. For most models, redemption means a comeback, a glossy magazine cover, a viral runway return, a social media rebirth. But Jamie Bochert was never most models. Her redemption wasn't loud. It didn't need lights, press, or applause. It simply looked like this: a quiet room, a guitar leaning against the wall, a voice, soft, cracked, unfiltered, singing to no one. After leaving the frenzy of fashion, Jamie began living more slowly. She spent her days composing, recording, sometimes not speaking to anyone for hours. Her apartment in Brooklyn became both cocoon and chapel, a place to escape and a place to heal. She made art without deadlines, music without strategy. She collaborated with friends, with filmmakers, with lovers, but only when it felt right. When Slimane invited her to star in his 2014 short film, she said yes, not for the spotlight, but because it felt like family. That's the thing about Jamie. She never returned to the spotlight. She simply reclaimed her shadow. And in that space, between silence and song, between fashion and freedom, she found something far more sacred than relevance. She found peace. Most models fade when they step away, but Jamie Bochert? She became legend the moment she disappeared. She never chased campaigns or posed for selfies. She didn't ride trends or rebrand herself for clicks. And still, the industry remembers her like a secret they're afraid to forget. You won't find a perfume with her name, no fashion line, no memoir. But mention her to anyone who lived through fashion's rawest, most romantic years, and their eyes light up. Jamie, she was something else. She left behind no empire, but she left behind a feeling, intangible, unforgettable. The way she stood still while the world moved too fast. The way she made silence more powerful than spectacle. The way she existed fiercely and gently without asking for permission. In an industry obsessed with being seen, Jamie Bochert made not being seen a form of power. Her refusal to conform became her contribution. Her vanishing act became her voice. And for those who ever caught a glimpse of her on a dimly lit runway, in a grainy editorial, or behind a guitar in Brooklyn, she remains one of the most haunting, beautiful ghosts fashion has ever known.